Hey everybody, today is going to be what some would term a schizo rant. Anybody who thinks that there's no hidden reality to things that's perhaps just beyond our comprehension, anybody who thinks that numbers are just numbers and that there's no such thing as synchronicity and there's no such thing as gleaning the possible significance of certain numbers that make themselves known at certain times in odd ways. Anybody who just denies synchronicity as a possibility at all will just be dismissive of this video and say that it's just a schizo rant. So I want to get that out of the way at first for those of you who feel that way. If you're a materialist, if you're if you're an empiricist, a radical empiricist, or just a generalized empiricist, if you're not somebody who is particularly open-minded at all, that maybe there could be reasons behind things that you don't know, that you can't explain, and you're not really interested in entertaining those kinds of possibilities, and you just get kind of gruff and huffy whenever somebody entertains possibilities like that, and you dismiss them out of hand. Well, you're not going to like this video. That's a long 2-minute preamble. But what I wanted to talk about here is the number configuration of 404. And admittedly, there are people. You're skirting the edge of schizophrenia. There are people who have schizophrenia, who see things where there is nothing there. Who believe in hidden significances when it's really just all in their heads. That is true. I'm not denying that the condition we call schizophrenia does exist, but I think it's possible to explore these questions, these possibilities, and not be schizophrenic. And that's what I intend to do, whether I'm schizophrenic or not. Roses are red, violets are blue. I'm a schizophrenic, and so am I. That famous poem. I'm still going to go forward with this inquiry here. This sort of free-flowing, perhaps somewhat rambling inquiry about the 404. That number 404. You might know it. You might, for a lot of people, the area code 404 has a certain significance. It denotes the ATL. It's Atlanta. It's the Atlanta area code. Now, I grew up in the Atlanta area, not in Atlanta proper, but in metro Atlanta, before it became the monstrosity that it is today. I've talked at length about this before, about how Atlanta has become this out of control, dystopian megalopolis that is absolutely growing out of control, and that I'm very thankful that I don't live there anymore. And every time I visit, even though I see people that I like, family and friends, and so forth, when I'm there, I'm always glad that I don't live there, and I'm always happy to leave when I do. I know that's a harsh thing to say about your hometown, but there it is. So it used to be that 404 was the area code for everyone who was anywhere in Atlanta or outside of Atlanta, or in the metro Atlanta area. Like I'm not sure how wide a radius it was, but if you were a dweller in Cherokee County, in Gwinnett County, in Cobb County, in the other counties that are outside of the city limits of Atlanta, but still are part of what has gotten to be called Metro Atlanta. It used to be that everybody had a 404 area code. So I lived outside of Atlanta in a smaller town known as Tucker, but I still had a 404 area code growing up, and everybody else did. Everybody else that I knew that was from the Atlanta area, just generally, had a 404 area code. At some point along the way, and I think the big tipping point was the 1996 Olympics. I think that brought Atlanta into the spotlight and caused a growth that caused growth to become exponential in ways that it hadn't been before. There had been growth before that, but it was slower and more manageable. But after 1996, the growth became more rapid, and and so at some point along the way, because there were so many people in the area, so many more people in the area than there had been before, they decided, I guess this was their reason, I don't know for sure, but they decided to make the 404 area code just for Atlanta proper, just for those who actually lived within the city limits of Atlanta. They were the only ones who had the area code 404. Or maybe it's not just, maybe it also applies to towns like Decatur that are basically adjacent to Atlanta. That's, when you're in Decatur, you're basically in Atlanta. Not to get boring with any of this, but anyway, good luck, right? If you haven't switched off already. There is a point to all of this, and I'm getting to it. So if you lived outside the city, you were either 770 area code or 678 area code. So there came to be 3 area codes denoting those who lived in Atlanta or around Atlanta. But 404, became more solidified in the public's mind as this is Atlanta. Just like 212 was pretty famously New York's area code, 404 was Atlanta's area code. Now, at some point along the way, with the growth of the internet, error 404 became a thing. 404, because, if you ever see error 404 come up on your screen, it means file not found. Something's gone wrong. There's been a glitch. What you thought was here is not, in fact, here. Or maybe it once was there, but now it's gone. It's been removed for reasons that may not be in your realm of understanding, or maybe you were never meant to know why this file that's supposed to be there is now no longer there. That's the feeling one gets when one encounters an error 404 message. It's a feeling of anger and a feeling of frustration and a feeling of what the hell, what's going on here? Has reality changed before my eyes? I swear there was a file here, but it's gone now. What the hell happened? So error 404 error. 404 became synonymous with the error that one encountered with that was when a file was not found on the internet. Now, what I'm wondering here, and this is my numerological quest. I'm interested in this intersection of numbers. Like, why was it that the area code that signifies Atlanta, that signifies my hometown, and I grew up outside of Atlanta, but I had a 404 area code, and and so forth. Why and how did 404 come to mean both Atlanta and file not found? Is that suggestive of something? Is that suggestive that that Atlanta is a mistake? That Atlanta is a glitch in the matrix? That Atlanta is a place that when you're there, you're really not anywhere because you're in a place not found, right? The file was there at one point, but it's not there anymore. What you thought was familiar has disappeared. And indeed, if you visit Atlanta, if you go, if you accompany me on my, not that regular, but irregular journeys to Atlanta, whether it's to visit family or to do stuff with friends. Most recently, I was in Atlanta to see Duran Duran, and but it can be for one reason or another. I would say I visit maybe roughly 3 times a year, maybe a little bit more sometimes, but I would just say roughly 3 or 4, maybe 3 or 4 times a year. Often Christmas time, and the other times are just contingent on more or less what's going on, and whether there's a possibility of getting together with certain friends, or whether there's a family situation, or what have you. But if you were to accompany me into Atlanta during these times, you would maybe think to yourself, this is error. This must be an error. Freud is reported to have said when he first saw America, he is reported to have said, America is a mistake, an enormous mistake. Now, I don't know the meaning of that statement. I don't know what he meant when he said that, but or in what sense he felt America to be a mistake. But that's how I feel when I'm in Atlanta now. I feel I see the things that were recognizable disappearing all the time, because all the time they're building stuff. They're building new stuff. They're raising what had been there before. Familiar sites are gone, disappearing. They get rid of affordable apartments and tear them down and put up some quote-unquote luxury apartments, which are essentially like McMansions, except the apartment version where you rent, and the price is well beyond the price of living. The cost of living is well beyond what it had been before, and all this is happening, and you're seeing all this stuff, plus just the blight, the blighted scene that is Atlanta, whether it's the high crime rate or the traffic. I'm aware there are places that are worse. Don't get me wrong. I'm not blowing it out of proportion, but I do think that Atlanta is unique in the way that it's been targeted, to become this symbol of the quote-unquote New South. It was positioned to be this mecca of the quote-unquote New South. And the idea was that it would rise from the ashes. Of course, the ashes were what happened during the Civil War. You might or might not know this, but Atlanta was burnt almost to the ground by General Sherman in his destructive march to the sea. He sacked Atlanta, essentially, and he and his men on their march to the sea, were just basically burning, looting, and making everything a waste before them intentionally. That was the whole point. It was to demoralize the South, to demoralize the Confederacy. But then in the years after the war, after the what they call it, antebellum. Antebellum is before the war, means before the war, but postbellum, right, would be after the war. In the postbellum years, the Atlanta was, some may say, miraculously, it sprang up miraculously like a phoenix from its own ashes. That was the symbol that was often used for Atlanta. And I think Atlanta became a targeted city. It became like something that the powers that shouldn't be, the Illuminatis or the Illuminatus or whatever the hell they are, the malignant forces which rule the ones who are called in the Bible the principalities, powers, thrones, and dominions. For them, they came to conceive of Atlanta as being this new thing, this symbol of the New South, whatever that was supposed to mean. This progressive city, that was springing up in the midst of what had been a very traditional culture, that is to say, the South, which still is, even compared to other places in the United States, very has retained a very traditional culture in many ways. But Atlanta was supposed to lead the way out of this benighted tradition into a more progressive future. But and yet the area code that it was Atlanta's area code 404. Well, that came to denote in internet circles, that came to denote just the notion of unreality, the notion of this is not really real, this is an error, this is, to paraphrase Freud, a mistake. Atlanta is a mistake, a gigantic mistake, and it is gigantic. It's not gigantic as far as the size of the downtown, but it's gigantic in the sense of sprawl. It's everywhere. Metro Atlanta is a huge plot of land. Atlanta has expanded way beyond its former borders, and now, are we not in a situation where Atlanta, the area code 404, is Atlanta, the file not found area, the area in which this blighted new malignancy has arisen, where before there had been the ashes and the destruction of the so-called progressive forces during the Civil War, which was supposedly the North, which the Northern powers were conceived of as being the forces of progression and of bringing the world into a new paradigm. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. But now, it's file not found. 404. Atlanta. ATL. You are an enormous mistake.